Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Bienvenidos al Tiempo para la Verdad. Y yo soy tu anfitrión, el doctor Bernard Fialkoff. Hoy tenemos el honor de tener un huésped muy importante, el señor Arte Maren. Y es un empresario mundial. El señor Maren ha sido un orador de gestión y consultor para asociaciones, corporaciones y empresas privadas durante más de 35 años. Haciendo apariencias ante audiencias relacionadas con ventas, administración, fabricación y venta minorista. Viajando por todo el mundo, Arte ha aparecido en el radio, en la televisión, en unos 8 países y en casi todos los estados de los Estados Unidos, incluidos en los programas que Larry King, Tom Snyder, Voice of America, mientras se presenta sobre tecnología administrativa y comercial en todos los continentes del mundo. Sus giras de conferencias recientes incluyeron Rusia, Malasia, Abu Dhabi y Singapur. La lista de sus clientes y asistentes a talleres del señor Maren incluye las compañías como Nestle Corporation, IBM, Teledyne, American Airlines, el Banco de América, AMCO y cientos más. Arte tiene el honor de haber sido entrenado a nivel profesional, lo que se llama clase 8, un nivel muy alto, por el famoso el autor, científico, filósofo, artista L. Ron Hubbard en 1968 y introdujo su enfoque sobre los programas de Larry King, Tom Snyder, Voice of America, radio, televisión por todo el mundo. Su programa de televisión Business Wise se transmite en 52 estaciones de televisión por cable en los Estados Unidos y también en el Internet. El señor Maren ha sido una conferencista detrás del telón de acero en la década de 1970. Se ha dirigido a gobiernos sobre el tema de la ética del señor Hubbard y también de la tecnología administrativa, así como a las principales empresas de todo el mundo como General Motors, AMCO, Nestle, Bank of America, IBM. Él es el expresidente de la Asociación de Consultores Profesionales compuestas por consultores de todo el mundo, todo el globo. Esos consultores utilizan la tecnología de gestión del señor Hubbard. Actualmente es el presidente de la Comité de Estatus Empresariales de Clearwater y recibió el premio de Wise International de un premio de vida por sus productos estelares durante los últimos 25 años. Él es un autor y escribió Las leyes naturales de la gestión, la escala administrativa, un libro que cubre la escala administrativa en 9 idiomas. Es un honor para presentar a todos nuestros televidentes el señor Arte Maren. Por favor, Buda, póngalo ahí en la pantalla. Bienvenido, Mr. Maren.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
It's an honor to have you. You know, when I was going over your CV, I didn't know what to eliminate because it's so inclusive. But, you know, then I wanted to start because we were talking and something, it's amazing. You said at the beginning, your heart was as a musician.
Yes, I began in your neighborhood. We were 4 of us singing on a street corner, and we were discovered, and we were brought to a recording studio, and the record became a big hit, and we were on the Dick Clark show. This is back many years ago, 50 years ago, but we were the first Temptations, and our record was called Barbara, and it was a big hit, and that was the start of my career as a musician.
Amazing. So you actually started the Temptations, and which is something that I had no idea.
Yes, yeah. And when our second record bombed and didn't do anything, the head of our label sold our name to what then became the Other Temptations.
Well, you gave him a good start, you know, so good for you.
Yeah.
You know, I know you also have a big spirit for Latin dancing and the Caribbean. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. In 1953, even before then, in 57, I was away being a waiter in the Catskill Mountains. And I heard Latin music for the first time. And my eyes opened wide, and I fell in love. And then I found out that people dance to that music. And I went to my first dance, and I watched, and I thought, this is what I must do. And for the next 3 years, I practiced in front of that mirror every day, every night. I went to dances Wednesday night, Friday night, and I was a familiar fixture at the Palladium, which was the home of Latin music in New York. That's where the mambo came. That's where all the bands came from Cuba and Dominican Republic and all these different places. And I learned to dance to the point that I became a professional dancer.
Beautiful. Well, it's an amazing story. And so probably our viewers are wondering, so how did this guy who's singing, music, dancing, how is it that you came to then go into business consulting, administrative consulting? And I mean, you've done, from the list of what I was reading, and your curriculum vitae is quite amazing. How did that come to be? How did you get introduced to this Hubbard management technology approach?
Well, again, even before then, I forgot to mention that I had my own radio show, right? Soy un locutore. In California, I had a show called Sabor. And I played solamente música tropical and all my favorites. I still have all my music to this day. But I had to make a living. And being a dancer, it wasn't enough. And I was always very curious. I wanted to make things work. So I began studying. I came across L. Ron Hubbard's material on management. And it was a system. You know, Bernard, it was not just a little bit here and a little bit there. It was an entire system. And in that system was the ability to find the real reasons for things. And I studied for the next 10 years before I
Wow.
became a professional to learn how to find the real reason for things. And then by accident, I was at a dinner. Now, some of the people watching now who are older will remember the Broadway show Hair.
Right.
And I went to dinner with one of the producers, and he was telling me about some big problems. Now, I knew how to find the cause of things. So I took a napkin and I draw out what is the organizing board or the way to rearrange his business.
Amazing.
And he looked at it and he thought, oh, this is very interesting. He said, can I have this napkin? I said, sure, take the napkin. Okay. And I didn't think anything else, Ben, except about a week later, I was living in Los Angeles and they were in Chicago. And a week later, he called me and he says, I showed the napkin and they want to hire you as a consultant.
Wow.
Really? I already had a job. So I said no. So he thought I was negotiating for more money, and he offered me for a weekend more money than I was making the whole week.
Wow.
I said, okay. So I went on a Friday, and I did my work, and I gave them a report, and they said, wow, this is great. And then all the way home, then I stared at the check. You help somebody and they pay you. You're in the same business.
That's
It's
right.
amazing. You help somebody and they pay you.
That's right.
And I've been doing it ever since for 50 years.
What a beautiful story. I know that must have been so fulfilling for you on the way home, because I'm sure struggling at that time and finally getting something like that must have really filled you with great feeling.
It did. It did. And I thought, okay, this is going to be my life's work. So I have continued to study all of Hubbard's materials, especially management, for the past 50 years. And
Well,
people would
you
say,
know,
like, how can you...
I want to ask you something, because I'm sure
Yeah.
our viewers are very, very curious. They've seen on some of our shows different Hubbard technology now, and they've been watching the show. And so I know that you had experience with this man, Mr. Hubbard. So, you know, for a minute or so, what would you say was your impression and the purpose of Mr. Hubbard, Mr. Ron Hubbard?
Well, I worked with him on many occasions.
Uh-huh.
And in fact, I would like to make available to you, if sometime you want to run the show, I have a video of talking about him and so on. But
Okay.
to answer your question, I would say two things.
Yes.
First, the amount of care or love that he has for mankind. Not just a single person, but everyone. And the other is the individual faith in a person's true ability. That's very big because it's very true. Every person watching your show now has greater capability than they're currently demonstrating. And with the right tools, the right technology, which you use on your show, they can increase that ability. And when they use that ability for good, to help another, I mean, after all, what is the purpose of being more capable, if not in some way to help another?
Right.
And that's the road to success, financial success, spiritual and mental success, is you help another, and by that, you are helped.
Absolutely. You know, what I wanted to ask you, because I know our viewers are looking forward to this show, and because it gives truth about life that they can apply to improve their house, their family, their relationship, their business, themselves. So I wanted to ask you, because you consulted so many people, and let's start out maybe on a simple step, because we'll have you back again for sure in the future. So what would you say you've seen as a common problem in terms of someone who's been trying to start, they've always wanted to start a business, whatever it is, and they just can't seem to do it? So let me turn that over to you, and go ahead.
Okay. Well, you know, there's three phases really. There's starting the business, there's maintaining it and growing it, and there's the exit strategy. What do I do with it now that it's grown? Do I sell it? Do I turn it over to my children, etc.? But your question deals with how do I begin, right? And it begins first with an answer to the question, what is your passion? It doesn't start with how do I make money? Because if it starts with how to make money, you might make some money, but it's short-lived. Maybe your passion is simply creating a business. You're an entrepreneur. And you find things that are valuable, that are interest to you, and you build them. But usually, somebody starts because they have a background. One of the things when somebody comes to me and says, how do I start? I say, well, what do you love? See, I'm successful in what I do because I love my work. I wouldn't even call it work, you know. You're successful as a dentist because it's part of your passion, you know, the results you get with people and the help. So that's the first question is, what are your capabilities? What's your background? What have you done before? What are your interests? Where do you think your talent lies? And we need to find something that serves as a starting point, you see? And I wouldn't rush that. Somebody says, well, you know, I always wanted to be a musician. Okay. Are you willing to go through what is necessary to endure in order to be successful? Well, no. Now, if they're going to say, well, maybe, then maybe that's not the road. There has to be a certain amount of affinity, a certain amount of purpose that's connected to it. I just did a show answering this very question. And it was to a group of business owners in Budapest, in Hungary. And they wanted to know, how do I find the business I want to be in? And I said, well, you can make a list or look for a list of every profession and go through it. And actually, the example I gave was, well, what's an audiologist? Well, that's somebody who helps people to hear.
Right.
Oh, you know, I once saw a television show where a child was able to hear his mother's voice for the first time. That was very touching. I really liked that. Let's look into it more. Let's research it. Let's see what that's about. I want you to speak to at least 3 audiologists. Have them tell you what the business is about. In other words, do your homework. You know, if you are going to invest $10,000, you do research. Well, you're about to invest 10,000 minutes of your life, 10,000 hours. It's important that you do some research, right? So I would start that way. And there's an emotional test that I believe you have access to for somebody who wants to know a little more about what they're emotionally capable of. You can speak to the doctor and he can provide you with an analysis.
Very, very good. You know what? As you're talking, I'm sure our viewers are wondering if there are links that they can go to get more information on what you're talking about. So what links would those be, Artie?
Well, I would first direct them to artmarinmanagement.com. That's my company.
Okay.
I would direct them to the adminscale.net, which is my book. And the book is all the key factors of management and is a strategy or a planning that you would do before you went into your business. So, maybe we can put that out to people, adminscale.net, and they can know more about it. And I can always provide more video for you,
Sure, no problem. So
right?
we'll
And
see if we
there's
can
one
get.
other I would recommend too. I would
Go ahead.
also recommend the waytohappiness.org, right? Which gives them a lot about businesses in there also.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a very powerful talk by Colonel Ricardo Prado from Colombia about how he implemented that basically to eliminate a lot of the drug trafficking and crime in the country of
Right.
Colombia. So I know the viewers saw a little bit about that. So that's at the waytohappiness.org. And they had seen that show. So you know what? The engineer has a few videos where you had actually presented to groups on business technology, and then the response of those people during those programs. So Engineer Buddha, please put on the video that Mr. Maren has provided, because I want our viewers to see the response of what happened once those people actually had this information given to them so they could understand and work with it. Let's put on the video.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Connie Ángel, soy ingeniera de sistemas y mi cargo es jefe de sistemas. Lo que me impactó del seminario fue el poder definir el producto final valioso, porque me dio un foco y un horizonte hacia dónde debo ir. Me dio un punto claro en el cual debo levantarme, hacer el proceso diario y me debo sentir feliz al final del día. Definitivamente esa ley es tanto para mi trabajo como para mi familia, como para mí como persona. Totalmente cero estrés, se te acaba la vida, se te hace el tiempo muy corto, entonces cuando planeas y organizas y tienes el objetivo claro, todo es más llevadero. Y lo más importante de adquirir la disciplina de definir exactamente el producto valioso es que tú dejas huella de felicidad en otras personas. Entonces realmente lo recomiendo, le cambia a uno el sentido de la vida, de cómo piensa, como que uno de tanto estrés se deja llevar por la monotonía y el confort. Pero al escuchar al profesor Arte, me movió como el piso, ¿cierto? ¿Qué yo estoy haciendo con mi vida como profesional, como madre, como esposa y como mi persona individual?
Very nice. Where was that conference that you gave, Artie?
That was in Bogota, Colombia.
In Colombia, okay. And what was the topic of your talk? What things did you go over?
That was the utilization of strategy for beginning or maintaining anything. The step before the action is the most important step, because that's what saves time and problems in the future. Most problems have an earlier beginning.
Okay.
So if you get the beginning right, you save a lot of heartache later.
Well, I want to validate you for something on this show, because, as a surgeon, I present to the dentist on surgical technique, and I have a talk coming up on Wednesday. And after speaking to you and going over the little data that you're going over today, which is very basic, but I actually changed my whole presentation, was much more organized. I made a little outline for them, and I realized how to communicate better to them. So I want to thank you.
You're welcome. Well, my book on public speaking, I have a book coming out on public speaking,
What's it called?
Probably available in about 3 or 4 weeks. It's the art of public speaking, presenting and getting positive response.
Okay. Well, you know, we're down to the end of the show, but in 30 seconds, Artie, for this show, what would you like to end off with to our viewers?
I'd like the viewers to know that it's all about knowing how to do it. You know, I've seen too many people who think that the problem is them, and it's not. The problem is if you're having trouble in business or in life, you're digging a hole with a spoon, you see? And it's a lot of work. And after all of that work, I still don't have a big hole. You need a different tool. You need a bigger tool, something that can help you dig that hole. And that's why you're watching this show. And that is the technology that Mr. Hubbard developed. It helps
with that,
you in life.
With that, Artie, I want to thank you for being on the show. I'm sorry we're running out of time. I hope the viewers go ahead and take a look at Mr. Hubbard's administrative technology. I want to thank you for being on the show. You'll come back again?
Yes, absolutely.
Well,
Sure.
It's a pleasure to have you. And for this episode of A Time for Truth, may you have a much better next few days. Get your businesses going. Get your relationships going. Thank you, Mr. Maren. And goodbye for now. From A Time for Truth, we'll see you on Friday.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got. But the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet